Well, this week you've not only been reading Spinoza and Leibniz, but Locke as well. And so in Locke we are moving on from our rationalist philosophers to our empiricists. A very different orientation that we see. You saw that one of the fundamental rules, presuppositions of the rationalist philosophers was that all human knowledge has its roots in things that are known a priori. Things that are known innately, or things that can be discovered simply by the use of reason alone. They don't ultimately rely on anything that we can discover or experience through our sensory perception and our interactions with the world. For the empiricists, this is very different. Empiria is the Greek word for experience, and the empiricists argue that all of our knowledge has its roots not in things that we know a priori, but indeed only in things that we can gather through our experience, through observation of the world, and the way that we observe the world is through our senses. So Locke, for example, the first of our empiricists that we are reading, wants to argue that the mind at birth is like an empty tablet, a tabula rasa. It contains, or like an empty room that has nothing in it. It's like a blank tablet, and then information starts flowing into us through eyes, ears, nose, through all of our five senses, and this starts writing things down on that blank tablet. So this is the source of all of our ideas, and out of these ideas that we fabricate knowledge of things. Now, in parallel with this distinction between the rationalist view of knowledge and the empiricist view of knowledge, you might notice that there is a very different view about the scope and the extent and the possibilities for human knowledge. All of the rationalists had this very optimistic view, this idea that if not now, then at some time in the future, there are no limits to human knowledge, because everything that can be known rationally. And so we might even be able to devise a mathematical type of calculus by which we can calculate the solutions not simply to mathematical problems, but to any sorts of questions about anything in nature that we might please to do. We saw that in Spinoza and in Leibniz. Locke uses this term critique, and indeed you may have heard of the famous book written by a later philosopher, Immanuel Kant. We won't be reading this term, but it's a book, A Critique of Pure Reason. So this is a term that Kant takes from Locke. Locke talks about a critique, okay? A looking at human knowledge with a view to determining and defining where in principle lie the limits of human knowledge. What sorts of things we can know, what sorts of things we can't know. So Locke saw that there was something fundamentally implausible about the rationalist enterprise, namely this promise of knowing absolutely everything with no sorts of limits whatsoever, even though we are aware that we are these limited, finite creatures. So Locke embarks on giving us an account of our ideas and how we form knowledge out of those ideas as a result of our acquisition of these ideas through our experience.